Today on Notsam Wrestling, we saw a pile driver on SmackDown. WWE introduces a new championship, not a, but the Wrestlemania idea for Rhea, Ripley, and oh yeah, the Bloodline is back together. This is Notsam Wrestling. Welcome to Notsam Wrestling. I feel like we're getting to that place where once a week is feeling tight. I've already got my rundown that I put together for today, and once a week is starting to feel tight. I think that we may have to start looking for alternative programming, maybe updates, maybe a more regular emergency podcast situation, maybe smaller podcasts just for specific topics. I don't know. Hit me up on Twitter at NotSam. Or on Instagram, and let me know what you think we need to do, because we've got a lot to talk about today, not the least of which is the Bloodline is back. Yes, Roman Reigns, Jimmy Uso, Jey Uso, and Sami Zayn. Where is Paul Heyman? We don't know, but what we do know is on Friday I posted a clip from this podcast from last week's episode where I said the Bloodline has the numbers. The Bloodline has the desire, but they don't have the plan. Where is Paul Heyman with the plan? And that video, that clip, was retweeted and posted on Instagram and Facebook by the one and only wise man himself. Paul Heyman, is he trying to tell us something, or is he simply trying to say, hey, I watched the product as well, Notsam Wrestling, my favorite podcast? It's up in the air right now. It's up for debate. I'll let you guys debate that, because what we got on SmackDown, standing in a row, was Roman Reigns, Jimmy Uso, Jey Uso, and Sami Zayn. One's up, fingers in the air, unified at last for the first time, those four, since January of 2023. Amazing to see. So, of course, and we talked about this last week, it starts with Sami Zayn being involved in Crown Jewel and going for the haluva kick. At the same time, Roman Reigns was running for Solo Sikoa. Solo ducks out of the way. Roman Reigns gets hit with the haluva kick, and the question that's in the air is, was it on purpose? Sami Zayn shows up at Monday Night Raw to address the audience, and before he can clarify whether it was on purpose or not, Jey Uso comes to the ring. Jimmy Uso comes to the ring, and Jey Uso is there supporting Sami Zayn. Jimmy Uso is saying, no. This is not a Canadian that can be trusted, this Sami Zayn. He kicked the OTC in the face on purpose. And Sami Zayn says, Jimmy Uso, who are you to talk about kicking anybody in the face? If I recall correctly, you kicked me, Sami Zayn, in the face. And then when things weren't going with me, and then when things weren't going with the OTC, Roman Reigns, you kicked Roman Reigns in the face. And then when things weren't going well with your brother Jey, you kicked Jey in the face. What's the deal? Jimmy Uso says, I'm not the bad guy. Interesting that Jimmy Uso's on Raw said, I'm not the bad guy, because that's the same thing Solo Sikoa said in his SmackDown promo right before Crown Jewel. I'm the bad guy? That's the question. That's the debate. I don't think that it means that Jimmy Uso and Solo Sikoa are on the same page, but it means that they kind of have the same messaging. Just interesting. Just something to put out there. Jimmy Uso says he's not family, which has been the whole thing, right? The Bloodline is family, and we'll get into that in a moment. And Jey Uso says, as far as I can see, as that crowd in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, all of whom watch the product, are chanting along to the name, Jey Uso says it. Maybe he's not related by blood, but when I look out there, I see Sami Uso. Gets a great ovation. Jey says he hopes that Sami will be with them on SmackDown. On SmackDown, the OTC, Roman Reigns comes out. He's alongside Jimmy Uso. Jey Uso comes out. He says, Us, I got somebody you need to talk to. Just hear him out. Here comes Sami Zayn. Roman Reigns is looking furious. He does not want to see Sami Zayn. Sami Zayn kicked him in the face at Crown Jewel. Sami Zayn clarifies, not on purpose. That was by accident. I promise you this. He says that, and this is the first, first Sami gets deep. Sami gets deep. He looks at Roman Reigns dead in the face. There's not too many men that can look Roman Reigns dead in the face and say these words. But he looked Roman Reigns dead in the face. And as if fresh out of a therapist's office. Sami Zayn says, the opposite of love is not hate. No, 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 Roman Reigns. The opposite of love is indifference. And the last thing you feel towards me is indifference, which makes me think, Roman, you love me. And everybody goes, oh, I never recall a superstar going up to Roman Reigns and saying, hey, Roman, I know you love me. But Sami Uso, Sami Zayn, he said it. You love me, dude. I see you, dog. And he said, I'm ready to be back on your side. I'm ready to relive those glory days. A lot of people are questioning this. They're questioning Sami Zayn being willing to rejoin the bloodline after all the trauma that Sami Zayn went through, with the trial of Sami Zayn, with driving him to turning on Roman Reigns and the bloodline just to save his friend Kevin Owens, only to be humiliated by the bloodline in front of his family when he fought Roman Reigns for the WWE Championship in Montreal, and everything that it took leading up to it, having to prove over and over again to Roman Reigns that he was loyal, that he was there on his side. How much do I have to do before you accept me? Jey Uso having his back, but Solo Sikoa not. Jimmy Uso, not at first Jimmy Uso having his back, and Jey Uso being hater of the year for a period of time. But Sami Zayn went through it in order to prove himself to the bloodline, and it was never enough. It was a mentally and emotionally abusive experience for Sami Zayn. By the way, the same mental and emotional abuse that Jimmy and Jey Uso went through, but Sami Zayn is not even related by blood. But so why is Sami Zayn wanting to get back together with the bloodline? Because Sami Zayn remembers what we all remember. Sami Zayn remembers standing in the ring and talking to Jey about not feeling Usi, and the whole crowd erupting and the bloodline's faces breaking. Sami Zayn remembers that even though it cost his best friend Kevin Owens, supposedly, the victory at War Games, he remembers at War Games 2022, standing in that double ring surrounded by a cage with the full bloodline and the magic that was. What Sami Zayn remembers is the same thing that we as fans remember. That although Sami and Jimmy and Jey, we're not getting treated well, we remember the good times. We remember those moments. We remember those absolutely magical moments. I mean, let's be honest. At WrestleMania 38, Sami Zayn was wrestling Johnny Knoxville in a match in which he was trapped in a mousetrap. By WrestleMania 39, Sami Zayn is main eventing against the Usos. And while, yes, he's on the opposite side of the Usos, that all ties in to that bloodline experience. Sami Zayn is a positive person. Sami Zayn doesn't remember, is not focusing on the trauma, is not focusing on the abuse, is not focusing on the bad time. What Sami Zayn is recalling is that regardless of the cost, regardless of what it took to get there, that when Sami Zayn stood in the ring with the bloodline, it was absolute peak bloodline. And as far as professional wrestling goes, the moments created were absolute magic. And sometimes, in order to get those magic moments back, you're able to forget about all of the bad stuff that you had to go through to get there, if it means you can have one more shot at experiencing that magic. We've all been in relationships. We've all had partners that maybe were toxic partners. Maybe we're partners that weren't good for us. But the reason we stay in those relationships is because there's that one kismet moment. There's that one moment of magic. And what happens when the relationship is over? At first, you go, okay, I'm out. I'm done. And then slowly, all the stuff that drove you crazy, all the stuff that was terrible for you, starts to kind of peter away out of your memory. And you remember those good times. And you remember those magic moments. And you go, man, maybe I should give them a call. Maybe I can have one more of those magic moments. That's what Sami Zayn wants. It's not confusing to me at all. Why would Sami Zayn team with the Bloodline again after everything he went through with the Bloodline? Well, he's now in a completely different place of self-assuredness, of self-confidence, and the knowing beyond a shadow of a doubt that he's needed. He is not there proving himself to the Bloodline anymore. In fact, he's got his own demands now. Sami Zayn is aware of his value and that the Bloodline needs him. And with that in mind and not losing that, Sami Zayn is aware that, as crazy as it sounds, they've got a shot for one more magic moment. And no matter how traumatic it might be getting there, that's not something that Sami Zayn is willing to turn down. So Sami Zayn is explaining this all to Roman Reigns. He says, I just need one thing. I need an apology. Roman Reigns says, I'm not going to apologize to you. Sami Zayn says, well, it's not about apologizing to me. It's about apologizing to your cousin, Jey Uso. Come on down. Jey is surprised. He goes, this wasn't my intention, but I'll take it. I am entitled to an apology, as a matter of fact. I'll take that apology. And Roman Reigns says, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I wasted my time with all this nonsense. He's not family. Get him the hell out of here. And Sami Zayn says, whatever, I'm leaving. You know, I'm not, again, going back to Sami's self-confidence, going back to Sami's self-assuredness, going back to Sami knowing his value. I'm not going to stick around here and beg you to apologize, Jey Uso. I got your back. This is what I need from you. Deuces. And he walks out of the ring because Roman says it's not about you. It's not about Jey. It's not about Jimmy. It's about Solo. Get out here. And instead of Solo coming out there, who pops up on the big screen? The enforcer who loves you, Solo. And what does he do? We got Jacob Fatu getting some mic time here and showing, okay, there is so much going on with this Jacob Fatu. But what does he say? Roman Reigns! He keeps calling him Roman Reigns. He calls him his full government. Roman Reigns! He says, in case you didn't know, Roman Reigns, you're not the tribal chief. Solo Sikoa is our tribal chief, Roman Reigns. And as far as we're concerned, there's a tribal chief and there's everyone else. And that makes you everyone else. He says, back of the line with you. And Roman goes, okay, all right, well, it's going to be what it's going to be then, right? Go to commercial break, we come back. Jey is backstage. Roman is yelling at Jey, and pivotal moment. These are the moments that answer the questions. Why would these individuals like Jey Uso, like Sami Zayn, why would they return to the Bloodline after everything they've accomplished post-Bloodline? And that's because they're returning to the Bloodline as new people. Jey Uso looks at Roman Reigns, tells him never to talk to him like that. He says, this is your one pass, but I'm not here if you're talking to me like that. And then he says, deuces. And Jimmy looks at the big Oos. Jimmy looks at the OTC and goes, what are you doing? And Roman goes, you're asking me what I'm doing? And Jimmy, even Jimmy, who has not accomplished what Jey and Sami have accomplished, even Jimmy, who is down for his OTC no matter what, looks at Roman, hears that tonality, hears that old Roman speaking again. That tribal chief that brought us all the way to WrestleMania 40, that Roman Reigns is speaking down to Jimmy Uso, and even Jimmy walks away. And now Roman Reigns walks alone. And that is important as we get to the closing segment of SmackDown when Solo Sikoa comes out for his undisputed tribal chief ceremony. And it's interrupted immediately by Mr. Roman Reigns, who comes to the ring. He's not going to acknowledge Solo. The town, what were they, in Buffalo? Not going to acknowledge Solo Sikoa. And he says, I'm here to make you a challenge. One-on-one, and the winner is the only tribal chief. And Solo just starts laughing at him. Solo mocking people might be my favorite thing on television right now. Solo Sikoa animatedly laughing at people and mocking them. He did it to the Motor City Machine Guns a couple weeks ago. Now he's doing it to Roman Reigns, of all people. The winner is the only tribal chief. Why would I need to do that? I'm already the undisputed tribal chief. Confident Solo. Confident. Look at you now. Look at you now. Solo Sikoa is my favorite Solo Sikoa. And I've liked many iterations of Solo Sikoa. But look at you now. Why would you do that? Solo Sikoa is my favorite Solo Sikoa. It's the same Solo Sikoa that made that face when he had the tickets. I love that Solo Sikoa. So he says absolutely not to Roman Reigns. He says, why would I fight you in a match, one-on-one, where the winner is the tribal chief if I'm already the tribal chief? Come on. I'm not doing that. But he says, I know you like to go to war. What if we went to war, Bloodline versus Bloodline? He brings up War Games. For the first time, something that we have wildly speculated upon for so long. If you're watching the product, which Roman, you should be following rule number 1, which is watch the product. Because we've all known that this Bloodline versus Bloodline thing was inevitable. We've been talking about it for a while now. And we get to Solo saying, by the way, how are you going to be the tribal chief without a tribe? He says, find 4 people in the back to be your partners and let's go to war. I don't think you can. Roman says, what do you mean, War Games? There's only 4 of you. And Solo goes, 1, 2, 3, 4, but the 5th is my dog, Sami Zayn. And Sami appears in the entranceway. So clearly there has been a discussion. Roman turns around, and again, I'm sitting here for a second like, of course, logically, there's no way Sami Zayn turns on Roman, right? Right? But the same way at Crown Jewel for a second, I said, what if? I said it again on SmackDown. What if? What if Sami really does turn heel? And this is the most dastardly way that someone like Sami Zayn could turn heel. But when Roman turns around, the Bloodline jumps him. Jimmy and Jey Uso have his back. And again, people go, why would they have his back? Family. Family is family is family is family. It is what it is. And you go, well, Solo and Jacob are family too. Yeah, but Solo and Jacob are the ones dividing the family. The Usos agree with Roman ultimately that Solo and Jacob are the ones dividing the family. So they come up and help. They help Roman Reigns. And Sami Zayn comes to the ring. Everybody's been isolated. Solo's got Roman down again. Which, by the way, we've seen this positioning quite a bit. As much as it seemed like Roman Reigns was going to be able to come back to the WWE and steamroll Solo Sikoa, they have found compelling, believable ways that Solo Sikoa is in control of Roman Reigns on multiple occasions, one of which he pinned Roman Reigns. Which you have to do, because eventually we are going to get that Roman Reigns Solo Sikoa match. And if you want people to buy a ticket to see it, make me believe that Solo has a fighting chance, and they're doing it. So, Sami comes out, all right? He comes to the ring, and Solo is holding Roman Reigns up. Kick him in the face. Remember what he did to you. Remember what he did to you. Solo's not wrong. Remember what he did to you. Kick him in the face. However, the last person to talk to Sami Zayn like that was Roman Reigns at the height of Roman Reigns' power madness. Do it. Do it. Sami Zayn is not going to have anybody tell him what to do anymore. Boom. Haluva kick plants Solo Sikoa. Jacob Fatu each 1-2. Roman Reigns hits Jacob right out of the ring. The Usos now step into the ring. Jimmy puts the one up. Jay puts the one up first, I believe. Jimmy puts the one up. Sami looks at Roman Reigns and puts the one up. And then Roman puts the one up as well. And here we go. The Bloodline is back together, and this is where the wild speculation begins. And I applaud it because we now look towards War Games. And we go, what exactly is this War Games match going to look like? First of all, it's not official. No graphic has been made. There is no now people have made custom graphics, and those pop up on Instagram here and there, but there is no, that I've seen, published WWE War Games graphic. There was reference to it made on commentary by Michael Cole and Corey Graves that the Bloodline and the Bloodline would compete in War Games. There was obviously a challenge laid out by Solo Sikoa in which Roman's team would face his Bloodline. But the definitive explanation as to what and who this match is has not been made yet. I would imagine we'll get clarification this week because otherwise we're starting to get close. I mean, we still got a few weeks. It's not till, what is it? I think it's the Saturday after Thanksgiving. But, 2-3 weeks, we should have it fairly cemented. Now, there's a couple of things at play. Of course, the Bloodline had a moment together. They haven't yet addressed what Sami needs, what Jay needs. Jay needs Roman to treat him as an equal. Sami Zayn needs Roman to apologize to Jay. Will we get the apology? I could see it happening because when we thought we were getting the apology, big pop. And then Roman turned around and said, no, I'm apologizing for wasting my time. Oh, you got us. So maybe we get the apology, but I'm far more interested in the War Games match, okay? So they specifically said, when Solo said War Games, Roman said, you're talking about War Games? There's only 4 of you. Implication being that a War Games match has 5-on-5. Now look, War Games has existed in a multitude of different ways. We've done 3-on-3-on-3. We've done 4-on-4. We do 5-on-5 most often, and originally, I think we've done 4-on-4-on-4 as well. But yes, the traditional, original, most often imitated, never duplicated War Games match is a team of 5 versus a team of 5. Now, War Games match rules change all the time, as I just said. I mean, the original War Games match was also surrender only. There was no pin, and that's been changed. It had a roof on it. That's been changed. Like, you can change these things, of course. But the conversation begins as to, could this be 5-on-5? And if so, what could it look like? A lot of people have speculated for a long time that The Rock is aligned with Solo Sikoa's bloodline. Now, Solo Sikoa was in the crowd when The Rock came out at Bad Blood. And he said to people in the audience, not on television, but captured via social and blasted out there, not by WWE, but by everybody else. Solo said it's all going according to plan when The Rock came out. Now, here's the only thing. Solo lies. That's established. If you watch the product, Solo Sikoa will tell a lie. I'm not saying he only lies. Sometimes he tells the truth, but he's not above lying. Solo clearly did not have confirmation from Sami Zayn that Sami was going to be on his team for a War Games match. But he went ahead and said that he was. He was wrong about that. So the idea that Solo said that in the audience cements it 0. Either Solo could just be saying that, Solo could be lying, or Solo could have been lied to. It wasn't on television, but everything counts. Regardless, the idea of The Rock being in the match is, of course, an idea that is out there. That Solo's team would have The Rock join it, and you would think if Solo's team becomes The Rock, Solo, Jacob, Tama, and Tonga, then Roman, Sami, Jay, and Jimmy Uso would also have to be joined by somebody. At one point, people were floating Kevin Owens. Even before Kevin Owens turned on Cody, that would have made no sense because nobody hates the Bloodline more than Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens is not looking for magic moments. Kevin Owens only has venom in his heart for the Bloodline. That never would have worked. But of course, something that I had brought up a while back, something that is possible would be Cody Rhodes. That Cody decided, now even though Jimmy Uso specifically said that was a one-time thing, Cody Rhodes has enough bad blood with The Rock that he decides to help it, and it becomes Cody and Roman's bloodline versus The Rock and Solo's bloodline. I don't see it happening. I don't see it happening for a couple of reasons. Number one, Cody's got his hands full right now. Between Kevin Owens and Randy Orton and everything else, being the WWE champion, Cody is occupied. Furthermore, I don't see The Rock fighting in a War Games match. It's possible. It's totally possible. I'm not saying it won't happen. But in my opinion, I don't see The Rock coming back and wrestling in a War Games match. I see The Rock coming back. If he's going to come back, he's going to wrestle in either a giant singles match that feels WrestleMania-like, or in a match at WrestleMania in the main event. That's why The Rock is coming back. He's coming back to main event WrestleMania or something that feels as big. And being one of 10 people in a War Games match, I don't see it. Possible, I don't see it. That whole scenario, both Cody and Rock do not work for me right now in that match. People, of course, ever since WrestleMania ended, they've been bringing up other members of the Anoa'i family, of the Samoan dynasty. And there are other members that are out there. You know, people keep bringing up Zilla Fatu, the son of Umaga, as somebody that could be coming in, especially with this WWE ID program, that Zilla could show up at any moment. There are rumors abound that Hikuleo, who is the brother of Tama Tonga and Tongaloa, but he's like 7 feet tall. There are rumors that he's already been signed. I haven't seen him, don't know if that's true, but those are the rumors. There's also a rumor floating this week and a picture that Lance Anoa'i, who is a member of the family that has been wrestling for a very long time. He wrestled, I mean, when I was working with Jersey All Pro Wrestling well over a decade ago, Lance Anoa'i would come in and wrestle with that group. But, I mean, he's been wrestling on the independents for a very long time. And the rumor is that Lance Anoa'i is also under some kind of contract. Don't know if it's true or not, but that's the rumor. So people go, well, what if you added Lance Anoa'i over to Roman's bloodline, since he's a member of the bloodline, and then you added Hikuleo over to Solo's bloodline, since he's a member of the Tongan family? It all works. It doesn't work for me. The whole idea of this happening is to recapture the magic of the original bloodline. If you're trying to recapture the magic of the original bloodline, to bring in new family members that may have wrestled on the independents but have never wrestled in WWE, to join the original bloodline just feels very Cousin Oliver joining the Brady Bunch. It's like, this is not part of it. This is not part of the story. Like, you're just saying, oh yeah, by the way, here's another cousin you never heard of. And maybe the hardcores like me are like, oh yeah, I know who that guy is, but most people watching don't know who these people are. And unless they're Jacob Fatu level special, immediate impact, one day could be WWE champion, War Games ain't the place, in my opinion. I think what you got to do is just go straight up 4-on-4. What do people want to see out of that War Games match? They want to see the original bloodline back together. They want the magic back. The Sami Zayn speaks for the fans. When he talks about those magic moments, that's what fans want with the bloodline reuniting at War Games. They want that magic back. The ending of War Games 2022 was like something out of a movie. It was unbelievable. Go back and watch that War Games match. And of course, Solo Sikoa is on Team Bloodline at that point. But when the bloodline all stands together, and when they finally trust Sami Zayn, there's nothing like it. That run, man, from War Games all the way up to the Royal Rumble of 2023, that November, December, January run, I would even, and then into Elimination Chamber in Montreal, if War Games hadn't been magical, then Royal Rumble wouldn't have been as special. And if Royal Rumble hadn't have been as special, then we wouldn't have all been walking into Elimination Chamber 2023 in Montreal thinking, you know what? Maybe Sami Zayn should win the title tonight. Maybe Sami Zayn is the one that should put Roman down. That all starts with that magical moment of the bloodline, the OG bloodline, winning War Games 2022. And that's what's trying to get recaptured, I think, in my opinion, in this moment. For me, like, this is one of those moments that we just need to have, regardless of anything else. We're going to get a Roman Solo match. We're going to get a Roman Jacob match. We're going to get everything. It's all coming down the road. And there is a logical part of me that would say, well, the new Bloodline should win War Games. Because now the original Bloodline is at such a deficit. Roman is like, I don't know what to do. I have to beat Solo Sikoa, and I just can't do it. And sure, from a narrative perspective, that would make sense. But why are people buying plane tickets, flying to Vancouver? I think that's where it is, to watch this War Games match. Why are we all going to be watching on Peacock? Why is that siren going to be blaring and Megan Morant going to be sitting in that chair immediately after Survivor Series goes off the air? Because all of us want to see that show end with the Bloodline, the original Bloodline, standing tall. And maybe we don't get it. I sound exactly like every Cody Rhodes fan at WrestleMania 39. And when it didn't happen, people were like, what the hell? And maybe that'll be me after Survivor Series. But for me right now, all I want to see is 4-on-4, original Bloodline versus new Bloodline. And somehow, some way, the new Bloodline finds a way to get on this. The original Bloodline finds that missing piece, gets on the same page, and on that night is victorious. Everything after that night can be the new Bloodline squashing the old Bloodline, but on that night, they're victorious. And for me, on that night, it's essential that you have the manager of all managers. When it comes to War Games, there's two managers. I mean, there's Paul Ellering and J.J. Dillon as that original babyface and heel manager with War Games' first beginning. But beyond that, it's Paul Heyman, whether it's the Dangerous Alliance, whether it's the Bloodline. Paul Heyman has made more impact on War Games matches than I care to count. Paul Heyman has to be back for War Games. The wise man has to be back. And the OG Bloodline, if only for one night, has to be a unit. Because I don't see the OG Bloodline staying together as a faction for all that long. I don't see the Usos getting back together as a tag team. I just feel like they get on the same page for this night, they're together, and then maybe they go their separate ways again. Just with the knowledge that they'll always have each other's back. I think that's the way to play it. Hey guys, forgive the interruption, but men, we know the only thing worse than losing your hair is waiting forever for it to grow back. I mean, look at me. It's a struggle. That's why you need Hims. Hims gives you access to a range of hair loss treatments that work, all from the comfort of your own home. Start seeing your hair grow back in as little as 3 to 6 months. You can choose between oral treatments, spray, and serum options to find your favorite. You don't need insurance. One rock bottom price covers everything from treatments to ongoing hair. Meet with a medical provider online, and if you're approved, your treatment will be sent to you for free in discreet packaging. Trust me, you don't want to look like me. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/notsam. That's HIMS.com/notsam for your personalized hair loss treatment options. Hims.com/notsam. Results vary based on studies of topical and oral minoxidil and finasteride. Prescription products require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if a prescription is appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for full details and important safety information. But we'll see. I could talk about this Bloodline stuff all day long, but so much more going on right now. Kevin Owens hit a pile driver on SmackDown. Everything counts. Rule number 3 on Notsam Wrestling. Everything counts. Kayfabe and shoot bans on moves and humans are all part of it. Now that we're all aware, now that we all kind of know almost everything that goes on, or at least we think we do. The internet has made it so that we think that we always know what's happening, which means that as fans, everything that we think that we know should be factored in to how stories are told. So if we know, okay, Kevin Owens is suspended from WWE in storyline. The pile driver is a move banned from the WWE in real life. Because we know both of those things become fair game. And it's very confusing, I'm sure, for a new watcher of the product. When you're like, oh, so like in the story, the pile driver is banned. And you go, no, the pile driver is actually banned because it is super dangerous. Except because this guy is so dangerous in the story, he's doing the thing that's banned in real life because as fans, we have all of that knowledge. And all of that knowledge needs to be used in order for us to suspend disbelief. I just think it's a very interesting thing that all kind of has to filter through one thing, right? Ultimately, the way stories are told is, what is the knowledge that people have? And how can we use that knowledge to further a narrative? And that knowledge is now a combination of storyline and real life stuff, which means in some instances, the real life stuff becomes part of the storyline. Now, but you have to factor in the level of seriousness that we as fans take the real life stuff, which they did, meaning that if we see a pile driver on television, it should be stop the presses. Something insane just happened. I know we're putting on a show here, but a real life bad thing just happened. And that should take it even further. See, for me, as much as like Crown Jewel made it so that clearly there is legitimate bad blood in storyline. I say legitimate. But like, okay, so an original theory was that both Kevin Owens and Randy Orton are going to turn on Cody Rhodes. So it's possible that on some level, Kevin Owens and Randy Orton are seeing eye to eye, but just not telling anybody right now. However, I felt like even though after Crown Jewel, it would be hard to convince anybody of that, it wouldn't make a ton of sense. After SmackDown, you can't do it. It makes no sense at all. Now, we're completely on board. I feel like once we see that pile driver hit, we can talk about Cody Rhodes and Randy Orton and Kevin, because that is a danger, right? And we've been talking about it here on the show. Ever since the Kevin Owens story started, I said what we're really seeing is the first steps of the Randy Orton, Cody Rhodes story. But what you don't want to do is have people thinking that so much that they don't even take the Kevin Owens, Randy Orton story seriously. What they did on SmackDown was they made it so this becomes the story that we need to see resolved right now. Raspy Randy Orton comes to the ring and says enough is enough, drops an S-bomb, and says he wants Kevin Owens out there. Kevin Owens comes out. He's wearing his long pants. He's wearing a T-shirt that says Kevin is right. And the officials, the WWE officials are stopping him. Kevin Owens does his thing, his fake-out move, where he makes it look like, okay, all right, you guys are right. I'm not going to do anything. Just kidding, and runs into the ring. At one point, he's able to kick Randy either in the gut or a low blow. And then real quick, and this is why Kevin Owens is so brilliant. Because if we are to believe that the pile driver is a legitimately banned move, then if we still want to take these WWE officials seriously in storyline, we have to believe that they would try to stop it. So Kevin Owens does a pile driver as quick as he can. Kevin Owens, as soon as he picks up Randy Orton, he puts him in pile driver position and just leans back right away. There's no hype. It's just like, oh my God, did I just see what I think I saw? And Randy Orton goes down, and he's like in a state. And the commentary's putting over the pile driver huge, and people are like, oh my God. And Kevin Owens, as he exits through the crowd, is almost looking back in the ring like, Jesus, what did I just do? Kevin Owens pulled off the pile driver, by the way, beautifully, in the sense that that's a very risky thing to do. People know that it's a dangerous move as it is because they know it's legitimately banned. That's what makes this story compelling. But when that happens, if anything gets screwed up, the question is going to be, why would you do that? And by the way, Randy Orton is a 90-pound man. It's a dangerous thing to do. But Kevin Owens pulled it off beautifully. I think, and then Cody came out and helped Randy back, which I think adds a layer to the story of Cody and Randy being such good friends, that Cody was not on SmackDown at all. because he was helping Randy and going with him in the ambulance to the hospital, which again makes me feel like he wouldn't. Why would he have anything to do with the War Games match if we're telling this story that he's clearly involved with between Randy and Kevin Owens, with him as the third? I have to. So we're all in agreement that this is not a plan between Kevin Owens and Randy Orton. That this is a legitimate storyline rivalry. The question is going to be, because they said, Randy Orton in storyline is now injured. Is this a way to get to Kevin Owens and Cody Rhodes next and never actually do the Kevin and Randy match? Or does Randy Orton come back sooner than later? I almost feel like, okay, so if I'm trying to telegraph where we're going, I'm almost like, okay, this seems like a good way to get Randy Orton off television. This whole story did start with Kevin Owens and Cody Rhodes. This story starts with Kevin Owens attacking Cody Rhodes in a parking lot. Cody moved on to Gunther right after that. Kevin Owens moved on to Randy Orton. Cody Rhodes has never discussed what Kevin Owens did to him. Cody Rhodes has decided to try to suffocate that incident with lack of oxygen and move on. I think Cody Rhodes is in a position now where he has to talk about it, especially because he rode with his friend Randy Orton in the ambulance to the hospital. Randy Orton also, we want to sell the fact that he's just coming off of that back surgery that almost ended his career. So to me, it feels like the move is to take Randy Orton off television. Now we build towards a Cody Rhodes-Kevin Owens match. And whether that's going to happen at Survivor Series or whether we're going to wait on that and have it happen at Saturday night's main event. Maybe at first, Cody doesn't want to address Kevin Owens. Maybe Kevin Owens has to force the issue. So instead of getting to it in 2 or 3 weeks, we get to it in whatever it is, 5 or 6 weeks, when we get Saturday night's main event in Long Island. I don't think Kevin Owens is going to win the title from Cody Rhodes. I think what we've got is an instance where maybe Cody and Kevin Owens have their match. Cody wins. Randy comes out to applaud Cody Rhodes. And Randy turns on Cody Rhodes. This is how dastardly Randy Orton is. That even though he's got this personal beef with Kevin Owens, even though Kevin Owens did everything that he did to Randy Orton, and Cody was only there to help Randy, Randy looks at Cody, his best friend, who is the champion, and Kevin Owens, his worst enemy, who is not the champion, and turns on Cody Rhodes. Because that's the snake that Randy Orton is. Because what's the difference between the two of them? The difference between the two of them is not one is Randy's friend and one is not Randy's friend. The difference between the two of them is one of them has the championship. And that's the same championship that Randy Orton has had his eyes locked on for months. Cody Rhodes beats Kevin Owens, and instead of Randy saying, I appreciate what you did for me, Cody, Randy turns on Cody. And this is how we build to Randy Orton versus Cody Rhodes. This also leaves us in a position where we can easily do Randy Orton versus Kevin Owens coming off of Randy Orton versus Cody Rhodes, win or lose. Randy Orton could easily beat Cody Rhodes for the championship. This could start Cody trying to get his title back from Randy. This could have Cody move on to something else while Cody moves on to Kevin Owens, because here's the thing. What's interesting about the dynamics of these three is that Kevin Owens does not technically have to be a heel coming off of this. As much as Kevin Owens is this unstable maniac right now, as much violence as Kevin Owens is responsible for, because it's justified, technically, once the match with Cody is over, Kevin Owens can move on to Randy Orton. And Kevin Owens is the good guy. Kevin Owens is the good guy because Kevin Owens has been honest this whole time. Kevin Owens is the good guy because you can justify the psychology behind what he's doing. You may not agree with every action, but you understand where Kevin Owens is coming from. Kevin Owens is hurt, and hurt people hurt people. If Randy Orton were to turn on Cody Rhodes, Randy Orton's not doing that because he's hurt. Randy Orton is not doing that because he was mistreated. Randy Orton is not doing that because it's justified. Randy Orton is doing that because he's selfish. Randy Orton is doing that because he wants the title for himself, which puts Kevin Owens and Randy Orton on two separate planes. If Randy Orton turns on Cody Rhodes anytime soon, Randy Orton is just a heel. If Kevin Owens comes off of this story, depending on what he's got next, he is by no stretch stuck in the position of being a villain. Because as much as he's going after the hero, not that we deserve, but that we need, Cody Rhodes, he's justified. And he can be a good guy on the other side of this. Randy Orton is the one that would be stuck being a bad guy if Randy does what I think he'll do, which is follow the instincts of what that character is and strike not the person who wronged him, but his friend, because his friend is the champion. Complicated web that we weave. And speaking of champions, a new championship was announced on SmackDown. The Women's United States Championship is coming. It's the secondary women's title that we've been talking about for years, I feel like now. Constantly getting emails about it, and I feel like, so Nick Aldis makes this announcement on SmackDown. And as of right now, as of this recording, it hasn't been clarified whether this is a SmackDown title or a title that will go across the two brands. And it could be either. Nick Aldis specifically said that this was for in response to everything that has happened here on SmackDown. But he also says it is to be earned by whoever is willing to earn it. So this could just be an instance of Nick Aldis putting over the women on SmackDown and then announcing this title that is up for grabs amongst either brand. I don't think NXT will play a part in it at all, but because they've already got the North American Championship, and I don't think that they would want to get rid of that title. I think it's a very valuable title in NXT, but it could be between Raw and SmackDown, or they could announce an Intercontinental Women's Championship on Raw to match the United States Championship. Either way, it could happen, and neither one of those two would surprise me. I think this championship is less about what's going on right now and more about where the division is going. The Women's United States Championship is not going to win or lose based on what the roster is, because the roster speaks for itself. It's going to win or lose based on TV time. What's going to make the Women's United States Championship meaningful is that rivalries are developed and a decent amount of television time is given to this championship. Because when you look at the women's roster that is to come, when you look at what the women's roster is going to look like as early as next year, it's going to be insane, right? We've already got, so for me, this is what we've got in sort of the world championship division of the women. And there are other women that I'll probably forget, but you got like Rhea Ripley, Liv Morgan. I think Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill are already in that. Obviously, Bianca, she's a former WWE Women's Champion, but I think Jade Cargill is already in there too. Io Sky, Nia Jax, obviously. And I think Tiffany Stratton is not in the conversation for United States Women's Championship. I think Tiffany Stratton is in that conversation for World Championship right now. I think already on the show, perfect for a secondary division, is Michin, is Chelsea Green, is Zelina. Naomi could honestly be in either division. Naomi could be in the World Championship division. Naomi could be in the secondary, in the United States Championship division. I think Bayley is in the World Championship division. Piper Niven, I think, is in the second in the United States Championship division. Shotzi. And I think for me, somebody that I'd like to see maybe be the first women's United States champion is Candice LeRae. I think we've seen more and more out of Candice, and I think that I'd like to see that rocket get put on the back of Candice LeRae. Now, look, there's a lot of great candidates. I think Mi Chin would be awesome as the first champion. I think Chelsea Green would be amazing as the first champion. But for me, I think my pick would be Candice LeRae. But the reason that I say that this title is about what's to come is because think about how much bigger this division is going to get in very short order, right? Already, hypothetically, to come back at some point, you've got Becky Lynch, who is out right now, but has never said she's retired from wrestling. Now, look, maybe she is. But realistically, I think there's a good chance that she'll be back in WWE sooner rather than later. Asuka is out with injury right now. I would imagine she'll be back soon. Charlotte is out with injury. I would imagine she'll be back soon. Alexa Bliss is out. There have been lots of hints that she could be back soon. Dakota Kai is out with injury. She'll be back soon. But when you look at that, right, you've got Becky, Asuka, Charlotte, Alexa, all to be added to that World Championship division. Dakota Kai, I feel like at this point, you could maybe put her on that Naomi plane where she could work as a top tier in the United States Championship division or work as that tier of competing for that women's championship. You could have a situation where you got Io Sky in the World Championship picture and Kairi Sane in the secondary picture. And then you've got NXT and all the call-ups to come from NXT. You got Lash Legend and Jakara Jackson, who are already theoretically on the main roster. It seems like they're there enough that I think they're fairly locked in. But then I think ready right now, you could call these women up tomorrow if you had a plan for them. Cora Jade is ready. Roxanne Perez is ready. Julia is ready. Stephanie Vaquer is ready. Zarya is ready. These are global stars already. You've got Thea Hale, I think, is already ready for the main roster. I think Jada Parker is one who is going to make such an impact when she gets to the main roster. Jada Parker is the one to watch. And I said a while back, Lash Legend was my one to watch. Now that everybody has figured out that Lash Legend really is the one to watch, that I wasn't wrong about Lash Legend, my new one to watch from NXT that is just so different from anything that exists right now and is accelerating at such a level, is meeting every single challenge on television and is just excellent, is Jada Parker. When Jada Parker gets to the main roster, she has the potential to be a huge difference maker. And then right under that, I mean, Carmen Petrovic, to me, dark horse candidate, somebody that could be huge. You've got Nikita Lyons, who's another one who's so different and has such an aura. Nikita Lyons is pure aura. You've got Sol Ruka, who everybody's waiting. I mean, the moveset on this woman is unreal. And then you've got Lola Vice, who I feel like is going to make an unbelievable impact on that main roster. So with all those names coming up, the roster is not going to be an issue for adding a secondary title to the women's division. It's only going to be about how do you figure out, how do you give TV time to that many female stars as well as the amount of male stars that you also have. It's a good thing you got two brands. And if these rumors are true, every time you turn on the internet, somebody's saying Raw is going to be 3 hours, SmackDown is going to be 3 hours. They're not going to have a problem. If they make either one of those shows or both of them 3 hours, they're not going to have any problem filling that time. Because they got a lot of people and more coming all the time. More coming from that WWE ID program, more coming from the NIL program, more coming from NXT. It's amazing. It's an embarrassment of riches. Now, before we move on to emails, and I was going to talk about that WWE ID program, but we got so much to talk about. I mean, WWE ID program, you got Elimination Chamber announced for March 1st. You got tag teams that feel like they're breaking up left and right. I feel like we're going to have to wait. Miz being kidnapped. speculating wildly on Goldberg's retirement match. There may be some more content coming this week because I want to talk about it's a shame that Rhea Ripley is injured right now. She was just on the precipice of kind of getting to the climax of this Liv Morgan, Dominic Mysterio story. But the Liv Morgan, Dominic Mysterio act has somehow accelerated to be even bigger to me than the Rhea Ripley, Dominic Mysterio act was. Now, nobody really knows how long Rhea Ripley is going to be out of action for. But I know that there are those that are hoping that she's back in time for WrestleMania, and you can count me among them. I want Rhea Ripley back in time for WrestleMania badly. Maybe she'll be back in time for the Royal Rumble. Maybe she won't be. Maybe she'll be back in time for the Elimination Chamber. Maybe she won't be. But let's speculate wildly. I have no idea, but if Rhea Ripley is not back in time for the Chamber or the Rumble, hypothetically, that takes her out of any championship matches, right? Already on my WrestleMania card, I've got the idea of Charlotte versus Tiffany Stratton for the women's championship, for the WWE Women's Championship. I would love to see that. Maybe if Liv Morgan is still champion, maybe Raquel turns on her. Maybe you have Bianca Belair versus Liv Morgan. Maybe you have maybe Jade Cargill takes the title from Liv Morgan before WrestleMania. Maybe Bianca Belair challenges Jade Cargill for the Women's Championship. Maybe it's reversed. Maybe Bianca Belair beats Liv Morgan before WrestleMania. Maybe Jade Cargill wins the Elimination Chamber. There's a lot there. But I think for WrestleMania, what I think we need to see, this is what we need to see at WrestleMania. We got to see Rhea Ripley back and better than ever. And we got to have a bow put on this whole storyline that has literally been lasting all year. By the time that Rhea Ripley gets back, it'll be over a year. The Liv Morgan Revenge Tour started in January of 2024. I see it culminating, finally, at WrestleMania 41, April 2025. And the way this culminates to me, yeah, it'd be satisfying to see Rhea Ripley finally get revenge against Liv Morgan. Sure, that's one way to go. But I don't think that's the match. I don't think that's the thing. I don't think that's the top of the mountain. I think that's a summit, but I don't think that's the peak. And at WrestleMania, if you're going to culminate this rivalry, you got to hit the peak. If we can get Rhea Ripley back in time for WrestleMania, the only WrestleMania match that I want to see is Rhea Ripley one-on-one versus Dominic Mysterio. It has to happen. It's time. Rhea Ripley one-on-one versus Dominic Mysterio. It's one of those matches that I think people will go to WrestleMania going, I know we've got these big, giant main events, but the one I can't wait for is Rhea Ripley versus Dominic Mysterio. At WrestleMania 39, Rey Mysterio and Dominic Mysterio stole the show. Strike me down if I'm lying. Rey and Dominic stole the show. At WrestleMania 41, we have a chance to do the same thing. There is no match. Rhea Ripley and Dominic Mysterio have become massive WWE superstars in the last 2 years. Rhea Ripley had this massive moment at WrestleMania 40, beating Becky Lynch. Where do you go from there? How do you top that? What can you do with these two superstars who have ascended even the wildest expectations that some may have had for them? The only thing that you do is you go to Las Vegas, Nevada, and you go to WrestleMania 41 with Rhea Ripley versus Dominic Mysterio. Mommy versus Poppy. Once and for all. How great would that be? How amazing would it be to see the ascension of these two things happening? And then you go, it's like, okay, you got Jade and Bianca having this match. You got Charlotte and Tiffany having this match. But really, Rhea Ripley doesn't have to compete for a championship to still be the woman with the biggest match on the show. Rhea Ripley versus Dominic Mysterio. Just an idea, and that's what this podcast is all about, putting the ideas out there, and hopefully you enjoy them. Whether you enjoy them or not, there's room for your ideas too. All you have to do is email them in. Email notsamwrestling@gmail.com. Notsamwrestling@gmail.com is the email address if you'd like to contribute to the show. Let's go to the top here, and we go to Cade here on Not Sam Wrestling. Cade says, "Hey Sam, hope you're doing well. I am. Recently, I watched WrestleMania 23 and watched the hair versus hair match between Trump and Vince. My question is, what is your favorite hair versus hair match ever?" It's a good question. Buddy Rogers of the Freebirds, or Buddy Roberts. Buddy Rogers was the Nature Boy. Buddy Roberts of the Freebirds was the first hair versus hair match to use the Kurt Angle wig and the wrestling headgear. So that's a big time classic for me. But I think it's got to be Edge versus Kurt Angle. I mean, the Battle of the Billionaires is the biggest one by far, most famous one, but it's got to be Edge versus Kurt Angle because of the story that Kurt Angle told on this podcast, where they didn't tell Edge he was going to win until the day of because they just wanted to see him sweat, thinking that they were going to cut his beautiful long blonde hair. Just funny. But yeah, I guess. I mean, I don't know. I guess I'd have to go through historically and look at hair versus hair matches. Mark writes in, "Sam, my PTC and wise man on all things wrestling and the original shill. Thank you. I've declared that now across multiple platforms. Acknowledge me as the original. Everybody gets called a shill these days. Nobody was called a shill before me. Nobody. Enjoyed seeing you on Busted Open. Have you ever done anything with Matt Camp?" Yeah, I mean, we worked at WWE together. We did all kinds of pre-shows and The Bump and The Ultimate Show. Saw this week that Lance Anoa'i is now signed to WWE and set to start in NXT. Hikuleo Tama and Tonga's brother is also on the internal roster for NXT. I mean, if you say so. This is one of the things I was talking about on Busted Open. I think too often, as fans, we read something on the internet, and then we speak about it as a definitive. We speak about it as if we know. Instead of saying, I read that, I've heard that, they are saying that, some say that. That's how I try to refer to these things, because I don't know if you've talked to Lance Anoa'i, and I don't know if you've seen the internal roster for NXT. However, I have read both of those things on the internet as well. Do you see the Bloodline saga sprawling into NXT? No. I see it being referenced, if that. But no. You don't need to do offshoots of it. No. I know that they had to do it, but Sammy's comeback to the OG Bloodline has been a tad predictable. Dude, don't. I'm getting very annoyed with this email. Did you hear the way the crowd reacted? Did you feel the things that I felt? That most of us felt? It doesn't matter if it's predictable, if it's logical and makes you feel like, yeah, and leads to more. To just do things because they're a surprise is dumb. You should do surprises sometimes, especially when they're logical and lead someplace else. But usually when things are logical and lead someplace else, we see them coming at least somewhat. Unless he feels towards the Usos the same way Kevin Owens feels towards Cody for coming back to Roman. No, clearly he does not. He put the one up with Roman. That said, I can't wait to see what happens. If you can't wait to see what happens next, don't start by saying it was predictable, but I can't wait to see what happens next. Lean into the positive feeling. If you go, well, I wasn't surprised by that, but I can't wait to see what happens next. The headline is, I can't wait to see what happens next. If your headline is, I wasn't surprised, that's a negative perspective. And I'm only saying you this to help you, Mark. Because like Solo Sikoa is loved by Jacob Fatu, I love you, Mark. I'm not indifferent. But we must observe the unofficial rule of not Sam, let it cook. You got to let him cook, dude. You have to let him cook. Until the chef starts disappointing you regularly, let him cook. As always, I enjoy the show and acknowledge you. Thank you very much, Mark. I appreciate it. Anthony writes in, Sam, is there anyone in the history of wrestling that is or was more versatile from a character perspective than Sami Zayn? That's a great question. Ooh, I love this. The guy who is always playing the underdog role is now adding more credibility to the bloodline. Not to say they weren't already credible, of course. Perfectly fair statement. I'm not saying we don't already know. However, I do think that Sami is more important to WWE than people realize. I would agree with that. From the top to bottom, he not only fits in any storyline, but also makes that storyline better. People might laugh, but Sami Zayn is certified GOAT status to me. P.S. I can't wait to see how Kevin Owens responds to this. That's right, and I think Kevin Owens fits that same mold that you're just describing for Sami Zayn. But I think it's absolutely true. I think Sami Zayn is criminally underrated. I think people should be locked up and put in jail, is what I'm telling you, for the amount of underrated Sami Zayn is. And even when the haters come out, even when people start to poo-poo what's going on with Sami Zayn, because it's happened twice, and both times at WrestleMania, nobody will admit it. Not one person will admit it. But there were plenty of people that were poo-pooing on the Sami Zayn, Johnny Knoxville WrestleMania 38 match. And I feel like Sami Zayn and Johnny Knoxville were in that Rey and Dominic spot at 39. That you could argue, Sami Zayn and Johnny Knoxville is one of the matches that I will absolutely go back and watch again. Sami Zayn and Johnny Knoxville stole the show that night. And that was Sami Zayn's doing. Then Sami Zayn joins the Bloodline as a kind of a comedy thing. And it turns into probably the most compelling arc that the entire Bloodline story has had. Then post-Bloodline, it happens again. He goes to WrestleMania against Gunther, and people are poo-pooing it. Should be Chad Gable. Why is it Sami Zayn? Do we really need to see Sami Zayn again? Do we really need to see Sami Zayn again? And then he wins the title in the eruption because he made you believe. Whether you have to believe that he's a bad guy, whether you have to believe that he's an underdog, whether you have to believe that he should be whether you have to believe that he might beat Roman Reigns for the WWE Championship. Who can be in a match where people fully believe that he can and may beat Roman Reigns for the WWE Championship, and he's still able to pull off being an underdog in an Intercontinental Championship match and come back and be the linchpin that puts the Bloodline on another level years later? Sami Zayn's an incredible performer. Tanner writes in, hello, Lord of the Marks. Appreciate that. Kevin is right. If there's merch, it must be true. Are we at Notsam Wrestling to blame? Seems to me that Kevin is following the rules. He watches the product. Clearly, he's speculating while he's currently cooking. I acknowledge you. Look, I'm pretty sure Kevin Owens is a regular Notsam Wrestling listener because he follows the rules better than just about anybody I've ever seen in my entire life. It's remarkable. Poncho writes in, Sam, sup? I'm Poncho. Oh, awesome. Greetings from Ecuador. Hey! Just wanted to share a random wish list I would love to see during the rest of the year and near future. Okay. I'm going to say, call it near future, because the rest of the year is about 6 weeks, and you have a whole list here. Sami and Roman to recreate their War Game spot when Sami saved Roman by stopping the referee's hand from counting 3, only instead have Roman save Sami from being pinned this time. Could be cool. Roman saying, I acknowledge you to Jay. Maybe, but what is he acknowledging? Maybe. I'm not against it, but you'd have to set that up because Jay's not the tribal chief. Everyone who was there celebrating with Cody in WrestleMania 40 to challenge him for the title before his reign is over. I would love to see that because that goes back to what we've talked about Cody not having any friends because he's the champion. That's a great call to get in that ring and see everybody turn around and want a shot. That means CM Punk. That means LA Knight. That'd be a lot of fun. The pop when Cena takes off his hat on the January 6th, I think it's 4th, Raw to reveal he brought the buzz cut back. It would be nice. I don't know if he will, but it would be nice. Have Jacob Fatu make Roman Reigns bleed. I'm with that. I'm definitely with that. CM Punk letting his hair grow long again when he eventually turns heel. Maybe, but I don't know. I like I like this version of Punk. I feel like this is the definitive slick back hair Punk is kind of the definitive version of Punk. Xavier Woods to call out Big E and Kofi for never fighting to get their world titles back from Lesnar, telling them they didn't appreciate enough the chance that he wished he had. I don't think so. I don't see that one happening. Some of these are good. Some of them I don't agree with at all. All in all, good email. Let's see. Andres writes in, Sam, been enjoying the recent podcast, so I have two-part question. Okay. Apparently my earlier podcast, not great. The recent one's very good. The Rock came back at Bad Blood last month. Yes. Oh, that's not a question. And did a 1, 2, 3 gesture while looking at Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes. So my question, is that a hint we need to assume that WrestleMania 41 will be Cody versus Roman versus Rock for the WWE title? Well, you know I've advocated for it. I've advocated for it across multiple platforms. I've advocated for it here. I've advocated for it on the Chris Van Vliet Insight Show. I don't know if I've advocated for it on Busted Open or not, but I will, and I think I have. And if that's to be the case, does that mean we won't get Cody versus Rock or Cody versus Randy Orton title match at WrestleMania 41? Well, if that is the match at WrestleMania 41, then no, we wouldn't get either of those two one-on-one matches at WrestleMania 41, if that answers that question. Tyler writes in, I apologize if you've addressed this before, but do you know why Survivor Series has an early start time? I don't know what Survivor Series start time is, to tell you the truth. I could look it up right now. Quick answer is no. I have no idea. I would imagine maybe there's something else that night. I know that Bad Blood had an early start time because there was a UFC show that same night. But yeah, I don't know what the start. Oh, geez, it's a really early time. It starts at 2:30 p.m. Maybe that's when the doors open. 2:30 p.m. Pacific time. So it's 5:30 p.m. So 6. Okay, so it starts a couple hours early. 2:30 p.m. PT. That's Pacific time. Okay, so it just starts at 6. I don't know. I mean, it doesn't. I don't know. Yeah, let's go to Tony. First, I acknowledge you in my OPTC. Thank you for the acknowledgement. I appreciate that. What do you think of War Games of KO pulling a Drew McIntyre and joining the new Bloodline for that one match? A terrible idea. That would give Cody motivation to be the 5th man for the original Bloodline. Terrible idea. Also, it can lead the way for Cody versus KO at Saturday night's main event, where we get the ruthless KO and Cody. Yeah, I mean, I think we're already there. The last thing we need is for them to be in War Games to get to Saturday night's main event. He already attacked Cody in a parking lot in October. We could announce Cody versus Kevin Owens at Saturday night's main event today, and nobody would go, why is that match happening? We don't need that. It distracts from the OG Bloodline coming back together. No. Terrible idea. Ryan writes in, I acknowledge you, my podcast tribal chief. That's very good. My question is, we're speculating wildly with Solo counting Sammy as the 5th member and Sammy siding with the OG Bloodline. Could Solo bring it? Oh, yeah, we already did that. We already talked about all that, but I appreciate it. Div writes in, sorry, dude. I just abbreviated your name, but hi, PTC. Hello. Div. Great. This side. I acknowledge you. Hope you and your family are doing well. Lots of love from India. Appreciate that. Love to your country and your family. And my family's doing great. The way WWE is rushing the Bloodline story week by week, I think Roman versus Rock is likely to happen this coming WrestleMania only. Thoughts? Possible. Also, Roman still needs to apologize for his actions and the pain he caused to Jey Uso. Jey deserves an apology. The same Sammy also pointed out. I think we are that. I think is more likely than I acknowledge you. The apology, I think, is very likely. And I think I think you're right. I think Jey deserves it, and I think it will be one of those things that that'll be great when it happens. Hari writes in, Sam, hope life is going good for you. Are you kidding me? Look around me. It's going unbelievably. We've all been seeing what KO is going through right now, and have his best friend Sammy hanging out with the Bloodline doing this stuff. Are we supposed to think that Sammy doesn't watch the show and is not aware of what's going on with KO? I hope he watches the product. I would advise him to. I advise everybody to. And coming to KO, he clearly has to be going after Sammy now. After all they've been through. Look, I've talked about this before, and the only thing is that Triple H described Kevin Owens as Randy Orton and Cody Rhodes being his only real friends. That could be an excuse to get away from this, but yeah, I would imagine that at some point Kevin Owens will be mad at Sami Zayn. I mean, I speculated far enough that it could bring you to a world title match if all the pieces lined up at WrestleMania. I don't think it will, but it could. Let's go to, this is a long one. Okay, let's go to Nick. I acknowledge you as the only podcast tribal chief. That's true, by the way. So I have something I'd like you to speculate on whether we are likely getting Bloodline War Games. How do you feel about this story being what WWE could use to get back the original War Games with the ceiling and submission being the only way to win? No, I don't think they're ever going to do that. I think they've got their War Games, and it is what it is. They got merch for it. They got an action figure set. They got a video game. You know. Hello, Sam. I am Leo. This is my first email to you, so I would like to start by acknowledging you as the podcast tribal chief. Also, after watching Busted Open, I acknowledge you as the original shill. Now, this is an idea that had been on my mind for a long time. I thought about it with Jericho and KO, Bayley and Sasha. Now I see it with Nia and Tiffany. What if Nia turns on Tiffany before the cash-in, destroys her, puts her through 5 tables, wow, or whatever the hell. The following week, she says that due to her attack on Stratton, Tiffy will be out of action for so long that she'll be unable to cash in her Money in the Bank contract because by the time she recovers, the 1-year time frame would have passed. Yeah, she could even finish saying, I took out the biggest threat in my life, so time passes by, and then just a few weeks or maybe even days before Money in the Bank, Nia returns, or Tiffany returns, beats Nia up, and cashes in right away. So you get the return pop and then the cash-in pop. Look, it's not a bad general idea, but it would mean that you're taking Tiffany Stratton out of action until July. So are you willing to do an angle now that puts Tiffany out for 8 months? That's 8 months without a top star on television. If this story organically went on to like May, and then you did that in May, and then she could come back the night before this year's Money in the Bank, then yeah, I love that idea. But if you're talking about Tiffany just being gone for all those months, I don't think it's worth it. Jonathan writes in, I had a question on how you would feel down the line of the Bloodline story after the feuds between Solo's Bloodline and possibly a feud with The Rock. Roman finally regains the Ulafala and becomes the tribal chief once again. Then he decides that Jay should be the tribal chief. Jay would probably turn it down, saying he should earn it, which would then lead into a final match between Jay and Roman, with Jay coming out on top. I feel like this would show a lot of growth on Roman's part. I think that all of that would only work if Roman is retiring. If that's Roman's retirement match, then yes. If he's not, then no. All right, last email. Steve from Philly here. I, of course, acknowledge you as my podcast tribal chief. I wanted to ask your opinion on a crazy idea that's probably a long shot, but would be super cool. Is there any chance that during John Cena's retirement in 2025, Tony Khan would let Edge out of his contract for one night only? Even if he can't risk Edge having a match, one more face-off promo segment between Cena and, in my opinion, his greatest rival. I believe this would give Tony so much goodwill with wrestling fans that it would ultimately benefit him as well as WWE. Steve, I would love to see it. I think it would be a wonderful thing to do for fans. It will never happen. I think there is no way that he would do that. I think it would benefit WWE a lot. I don't think WWE needs it. But I think the amount that it would benefit WWE, I just, when you're a competing organization, there's goodwill, and then there's like, what are you doing? I just don't see it happening. I don't think that we're in that environment. If it were any other organization, maybe. But this one, I don't see it happening. Is it possible? Sure, it's possible. But my opinion, I wouldn't hold your breath. But hey, opinions are like elbows. We all have 2 of them. Appreciate you guys hanging out here for Notsam Wrestling. Don't forget, wherever you listen to audio podcasts, make sure you're subscribed to Notsam Wrestling. Make sure you leave a rating and a review. Make sure you're on the Notsam Wrestling YouTube channel. Make sure you're watching the video every single week. Make sure you're hitting subscribe. Make sure you're hitting like. Make sure you're leaving a comment. All of it really, really helps the growth of this Notsam Wrestling empire that we have now been building for over 10 years. And I couldn't be more happy with where it's at, where we're at, and you guys riding with me. Whether you've been here for a week, whether you've been here for a decade, you guys are the absolute best. We'll talk soon. Have a good one, everybody.